Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the UES Challenger, watching the stars drift past through the main viewscreen. The exploration vessel had been patrolling the outer rim of human space for 3 months now, mapping new systems and checking for any signs of hostile activity. It was quiet work, the kind that let a crew get comfortable with routine. Lisa Hayes looked up from her communications console with a frown. She had been monitoring the usual background chatter of space traffic when something unusual caught her attention. The signal was weak and broken, coming from somewhere beyond the edge of their current sector. "Captain, I'm picking up what looks like a distress call," she said, adjusting her headset to filter out the static. "It's not human, sir. The transmission pattern is completely different from anything in our databases." Morrison leaned forward in his chair. First contact with alien species always made him nervous, especially when it involved distress signals. In his 15 years of space service, he had learned that alien emergencies often meant trouble for humans, too. "Can you clean up the signal, Hayes?" "Working on it now, sir." Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel, running the alien transmission through various filters and translation protocols. After several minutes, she managed to extract a clearer version of the message. The voice that came through the speakers was high-pitched and musical, unlike anything the human crew had ever heard. Even through the translation software, they could hear the fear and desperation in the alien's tone. "This is High Counselor Zefka of the Volani Republic, broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. Our world of Serenity Prime is under attack by the Krex Empire. Our defenses have failed and our people are dying. We are a peaceful civilization with no military capability. We beg any nearby civilization to send humanitarian aid, medical supplies, and refugee transport ships. Our children are starving and our cities are burning. Please, if anyone can hear this message, we need help." The bridge fell silent as the translation finished. Ben Carter, the first officer, exchanged a worried look with the captain. They had heard rumors about the Krex Empire from other alien traders, none of them good. "Hayes, how far away is this Serenity Prime?" Morrison asked. "3 systems over, sir. About a day and a half at maximum jump speed." Dr. Amy Rodriguez, the ship's xenobiologist, stepped forward from her station near the science console. She had been studying alien cultures for most of her career and knew more about the various species in this region than anyone else on the ship. "Captain, I've read about both of these species in the xenological databases," she said, calling up information on her tablet. "The Volani are a bird-like race that evolved on a garden world with no natural predators. They've never developed any kind of military technology because they never needed it. Their entire civilization is built around peaceful trade and scientific research." Morrison nodded, encouraging her to continue. "The Krex Empire, on the other hand, is a different story entirely. They're a reptilian species that has been expanding aggressively through this sector for the past 50 years. They conquer worlds by overwhelming them with superior numbers and firepower, then enslave the populations for labor or specialized knowledge." Carter pulled up a tactical display showing the location of Serenity Prime relative to their current position. "Sir, if the Krex are attacking the Volani, this could be a problem for us too. Their expansion route would eventually bring them into conflict with human space." Morrison studied the display, considering their options. The Challenger was primarily a science vessel with minimal weapons systems. They carried only basic defensive armaments and a crew of 200. Going up against a Krex battle fleet would be suicide, but the desperate plea from the Volani had touched something in the human crew. The idea of a peaceful civilization being destroyed by aggressive conquerors went against everything they believed in. "Rodriguez, what do we know about Krex military tactics?" Morrison asked. The xenobiologist scrolled through more information on her tablet. "They rely on numerical superiority and brute force tactics. Their technology is fairly advanced, but they prefer direct assault over subtle strategy. They've never faced serious resistance from any of the species they've conquered because most civilizations in this region are pacifist traders like the Volani." Hayes looked up from her console again. "Sir, I'm still receiving the distress signal. It's on automatic repeat now, which probably means the Volani are too busy dealing with the attack to send new messages." Morrison made his decision. He activated the ship's internal communication system to address the entire crew. "This is the captain speaking. We have received a distress call from an alien civilization under attack by hostile forces. As representatives of humanity, we have a responsibility to respond to this crisis. However, we will not be responding in the way the aliens expect." He paused, looking around the bridge at his officers. Each of them understood what he was thinking. "Hayes, open a priority channel to Earth Command. Full encryption. Tell them we need to speak with Admiral Sullivan immediately." "Aye, sir. Opening the channel now." The main view screen flickered and changed to show the interior of Earth Command headquarters. Admiral Kate Sullivan appeared on screen, her gray hair pulled back in a military bun and her blue eyes sharp with attention. "Captain Morrison, what's your situation?" Morrison quickly explained the Villani distress call and the Krex attack. He transmitted all the relevant data about both alien species and their current military situation. Sullivan studied the information for several minutes before responding. "Captain, this presents both a humanitarian crisis and a strategic opportunity. The Krex expansion threatens not just the Villani, but potentially human space as well." "I agree, Admiral. But the Challenger isn't equipped for military action against a Krex fleet." "No, but humanity is." Sullivan's expression grew serious. "Captain, maintain your current position and continue monitoring the situation. Do not attempt any rescue operations. We're going to handle this the human way." Morrison understood immediately what she meant. The Villani had called for humanitarian aid, medical supplies, and refugee ships. They wanted someone to help them run away from their problems, but humans didn't run from bullies. They eliminated them. "Admiral, what are your orders?" "Stand by for the arrival of Task Force Guardian. We're going to show the Krex Empire what happens when they threaten peaceful civilizations in our neighborhood." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge crew to contemplate what was about to happen. The Villani had sent out a desperate plea for help, expecting aid workers and medical teams. Instead, they were about to discover that when humans heard a call for help, they responded with overwhelming military force. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the command center at Earth Defense Headquarters, studying the holographic display that showed the Villani crisis in detail. The tactical information from Captain Morrison painted a clear picture of what was happening at Serenity Prime, and none of it was good for the peaceful bird-like aliens. General Marcus Webb entered the briefing room, followed by several other high-ranking military officers. Webb had commanded human forces during the brutal war against the hegemony, where humanity had earned its reputation as the galaxy's most effective warriors. If anyone could handle the Krex situation, it was him. "Admiral, I've reviewed the intelligence on both alien species," Webb said, taking his seat at the conference table. "The Villani are essentially defenseless. Their entire civilization is built around the idea that everyone in the galaxy is as peaceful as they are. And the Krex? Standard aggressive expansionist empire. They've been conquering their way across this sector for decades, enslaving weaker species and taking their resources. The interesting thing is that they've never faced any real resistance. Every species they've attacked has either surrendered immediately or been crushed within days." Sullivan nodded, having expected as much. "What do you recommend, General?" Webb activated his own display, showing a detailed breakdown of human military assets in the region. "We deploy Task Force Guardian under my direct command. 3 heavy battle cruisers, full marine complement, fighter squadrons, and all the support vessels we'll need to end this quickly." Captain Ryan Foster stepped forward from his position near the wall. He commanded the UES Retribution, one of the most powerful warships in the human fleet. His ship had seen action in 12 major battles and had never lost an engagement. "Sir, what are the rules of engagement?" Foster asked. "The Villani are asking for humanitarian aid, not military intervention." "The rules are simple, Captain," Sullivan replied. "We eliminate the threat completely. The Krex Empire ends its expansion here and now." Dr. Helen Moore, the task force's xenopsychologist, cleared her throat from her seat at the far end of the table. She had studied alien cultures for 20 years and understood how different species thought about conflict and cooperation. "Admiral, there's something important we need to consider," she said, pulling up her own analysis on the main display. "The Villani literally cannot understand military solutions to problems. Their evolutionary history on a world with no predators means they've never developed concepts like warfare or strategic violence. When they asked for help, they were thinking about food supplies and medical aid. General Webb leaned back in his chair. And the Kreks? Complete opposite. They only respect superior force. In their culture, showing mercy or offering compromise is seen as weakness. They'll interpret any attempt at peaceful negotiation as proof that we're another weak species to be conquered. Colonel Nina Clark, who would be leading the ground forces, spoke up from her position near the tactical display. So we're dealing with one species that doesn't understand violence and another that only understands violence. Exactly, Dr. Moore confirmed. This is why the Kreks have been so successful in this region. They're fighting opponents who can't even conceive of fighting back effectively. Admiral Sullivan studied the faces around the table. These were some of humanity's best military minds. People who had proven themselves in combat against enemies that most other species would consider impossible to defeat. General Webb, I'm authorizing you to deploy with full battle protocols. Commander Alex Turner will lead the fighter squadrons, and Colonel Clark will handle any ground operations that become necessary. Turner nodded from his position near the door. He had flown combat missions in some of the most dangerous battles in human history, leading fighter pilots who were trained to fight against overwhelming odds. What about the Volani civilians, sir? Turner asked. If we go in with full military force, they might think we're another invasion fleet. That's a risk we'll have to take, Sullivan replied. Dr. Moore will handle first contact protocols and try to explain our intentions. But our primary objective is eliminating the Kreks threat, not managing Volani feelings. General Webb stood up, indicating that the briefing was over. How long do we have to prepare? The task force departs in 6 hours, Sullivan announced. I want every ship fully armed and ready for extended combat operations. We don't know how many Kreks vessels we'll be facing, but we're going to be prepared for anything. As the officers filed out of the briefing room, Captain Foster remained behind to speak with the Admiral privately. Ma'am, are we sure about this approach? He asked. The Volani asked for humanitarian aid. They're going to be shocked when we show up with enough firepower to level a continent. Sullivan walked over to the large viewport that looked out over Earth's orbital defense platforms. Massive battleships moved between the stations, their hulls bristling with weapons designed to fight enemies that most species couldn't even imagine. Captain, humanity learned a long time ago that sometimes the only way to protect innocent people is to completely destroy those who threaten them, she said. The Volani called for help, and we're going to help them. But we're going to do it the human way, which means we're going to solve their problem permanently. 3 hours later, Task Force Guardian assembled in Earth's outer system. The 3 battlecruisers hung in space like predatory animals, their weapon systems powered down but ready for immediate activation. Around them, smaller vessels moved, in precise formations, carrying Marines, fighters, and all the equipment needed for extended military operations. General Webb stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching as the final preparations were completed. His command staff had spent the past few hours reviewing everything they knew about Krek's military capabilities and developing battle plans for various scenarios. Sir, all vessels report ready for departure, reported his communications officer. Webb looked out at the assembled fleet. It represented a small fraction of humanity's total military power, but it was more than enough to handle anything the Krek's empire could throw at them. Signal all ships to jump on my mark, he ordered. Destination: Serenity Prime System. The task force vanished from Earth's vicinity in a flash of twisted space, beginning the journey that would change the balance of power in this entire region of the galaxy. The Volani had asked for help, expecting aid workers and supply ships. Instead, they were about to receive a demonstration of why the rest of the galaxy had learned to fear humanity's approach to problem-solving. The human task force dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Serenity Prime System with the precision of a military machine. General Webb stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching as his tactical officers quickly assessed the situation ahead of them. The scene that greeted them was exactly what they had expected and worse. Over 200 Krex warships filled the space around the Villani homeworld, their dark hulls forming a blockade that prevented any ships from escaping. Bright flashes of light marked where Krex vessels were bombarding the planet's surface, systematically, destroying cities and defensive installations. "Sir, long-range sensors confirm Krex fleet composition," reported Lieutenant Sam Chen from her position at the intelligence console. 237 vessels total. Most appear to be standard Krex destroyers and cruisers with several larger command ships. Captain Foster moved to stand beside the general, studying the tactical display that showed the enemy formation. The Krex had arranged their fleet in a traditional siege pattern, with the larger ships positioned to prevent escape while smaller vessels conducted the actual bombardment. "They're not expecting any resistance," Foster observed. "Look at their positioning. They've got their backs to us and their formation is designed for attacking a planet, not defending against an incoming fleet." Commander Turner's voice crackled over the communication system from his position aboard the carrier UES Vigilant. "General, my fighter squadrons are ready for launch on your order." Webb nodded, though Turner couldn't see him. "Stand by, Commander. Let's see how the Krex react to our presence first." As if summoned by his words, the Krex fleet began to respond to the human arrival. The alien sensors had finally detected the task force, and Webb could see ships beginning to turn toward them on the tactical display. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Krex fleet," Chen reported. "They're hailing us on standard diplomatic frequencies." "Put them through." The main view screen flickered and changed to show the interior of a Krex command ship. The alien commander was a large reptilian creature with dark scales and yellow eyes that gleamed with predatory intelligence. When he spoke, his voice was deep and harsh, filled with the arrogance of someone accustomed to easy victories. "I am War Marshal Thexus of the Krex Third Conquest Fleet," the alien said through the translation system. "You will identify yourselves and state your business in this system." General Webb stepped forward, his expression calm but cold. "I am General Marcus Webb of the Human Defense Forces. You have 1 hour to withdraw all Krex vessels from this system and cease hostilities against the Villani Republic." War Marshal Thexus bared his teeth in what might have been amusement. "Humans, we have heard rumors of your species, but we have never encountered you directly. Are you here to provide aid to these pathetic creatures? Do you bring medical supplies and food for the survivors?" "No," Webb replied simply. "We're here to solve the problem." The Krex commander seemed confused by this response. In his experience, other species either surrendered immediately or made desperate pleas for mercy. The human's matter-of-fact tone was unlike anything he had encountered before. "You command only 3 vessels against my fleet of over 200, Thexus said. "Perhaps you do not understand the situation." Captain Foster stepped into view of the communication pickup. "Perhaps you don't understand who you're talking to." Webb raised his hand to end the conversation. "War Marshal, you now have 59 minutes and 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Retribution quiet except for the hum of electronic systems. Webb turned to his tactical officer, a veteran named Major Kelly Brooks who had commanded fighter squadrons in some of humanity's most difficult battles. "Major, the Krex commander is going to test us. He'll probably send a small force to see what we're capable of." Brooks nodded, her fingers already moving across her control panel. "Sir, sensors show a squadron of 20 Krex destroyers breaking off from the main fleet. They're moving to intercept us." "Perfect, Commander Turner. Launch all fighter squadrons. Show them what human pilots can do." On the carrier Vigilant, Turner received the order and immediately began coordinating the launch of his F-47 Phantom interceptors. The sleek fighters poured out of the ship's launch bays like angry wasps, forming up in precise attack formations that no Krex pilot had ever seen before. Major Brooks switched her attention to the fighter coordination display, where she could track each individual human pilot as they approached the Krex squadron. The enemy ships were moving in a standard attack formation, expecting to overwhelm the small human force through superior numbers. They were about to learn that human military doctrine was based on entirely different principles. "All fighters, this is Guardian Lead," came Turner's voice over the tactical channel. "Target designation is simple. Destroy everything with Krex markings. Rules of engagement are weapons free." The engagement began 8 minutes later when the opposing forces came within weapons range. The Krex destroyers opened fire with their standard plasma cannons, filling space with bolts of superheated energy designed to overwhelm enemy shields through sustained bombardment. The human response was unlike anything the Krex had ever encountered. Instead of engaging in a direct firefight, the F-47 fighters used their superior speed and maneuverability to attack from unexpected angles. They moved in coordinated groups with some fighters drawing Krex fire while others struck at vulnerable points on the enemy ships. Lieutenant Gary Stone led one of the attack groups, his fighter dancing through space as Krex weapons fire tried unsuccessfully to track him. His squadron had practiced these maneuvers countless times, and their execution was flawless. Stone to Guardian lead, "We're seeing weak points in their rear shield generators," he reported. "Recommend kinetic missile strikes on the engine sections." Confirmed. Stone, "All squadrons focus fire on propulsion systems." The human attack shifted to target the Krex ship's engines, using precision strikes instead of overwhelming firepower. Within minutes, several of the alien destroyers found themselves dead in space, their propulsion systems destroyed by weapons they hadn't even seen coming. On the surface of Serenity Prime, High Counselor Zefka watched the orbital battle through the Emergency Command Center's observation dome. The Villani leader was a small, delicate creature with feathered skin and large eyes that reflected his species' peaceful nature. "Trillin, what are we seeing up there?" he asked his aide, who was monitoring the sensor displays. Trillin's voice carried a mixture of confusion and awe. "High Counselor, the new ships that arrived are fighting the Krex fleet. But their tactics are unlike anything in our databases. They're not trying to drive the Krex away. They're systematically destroying them." Zefka felt a chill of fear mixed with hope. The Villani had sent out their distress call expecting other peaceful species to send aid supplies and refugee ships. Instead, they were witnessing something their gentle minds could barely comprehend. Total warfare conducted with scientific precision. Back in space, the human fighters were completing their destruction of the Krex squadron. The alien ships, designed to fight opponents who would engage them in straightforward combat, had no defense against the coordinated precision strikes that human pilots specialized in. War Marshal Thexus watched from his command ship as his forward squadron was systematically eliminated. In 30 years of conquest, he had never seen any species fight like these humans. They attacked like predators, using speed and intelligence instead of brute force. "Contact the High Command," he ordered his communications officer. "Request immediate reinforcement of the 3rd Conquest Fleet. We are facing an unknown enemy with superior tactical capabilities." War Marshal Thexus stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with growing unease. The destruction of his forward squadron had been complete and humiliating, achieved by an enemy force that seemed to treat warfare as a precise science rather than a test of honor and strength. "War Marshal, High Command has denied our request for reinforcements," his communications officer reported. "They consider this engagement a local matter that should be resolved with existing forces." Thexus snarled in frustration. The Krex High Command had never faced an enemy like these humans, so they couldn't understand the threat. In their view, any species that could be defeated by superior numbers wasn't worth worrying about. "Signal all vessels to form defensive positions around the planet," he ordered. "If the humans want to save these Villani creatures, they'll have to come through our entire fleet." General Webb received reports of the Krex fleet movements from his sensor operators. The alien commander was doing exactly what human military analysts had predicted, falling back on traditional defensive tactics that relied on superior firepower and numerical advantage. "Sir, the Krex are positioning their ships to use Serenity Prime as a shield," Captain Foster observed. "If we attack them directly, there's a risk of collateral damage to the Villani population centers." "That's what they're counting on," Webb replied. "They think we'll hesitate to attack because we don't want to harm civilians. They don't understand that humans have been dealing with hostage situations for thousands of years." Dr. Moore looked up from her xenopsychology station. "General, I'm receiving communications from the Villani surface. High Counselor Zefka is requesting direct contact with our command staff. Put him through." The main view screen changed to show the interior of a Villani command center. High Counselor Zefka appeared on screen. his feathered features showing the strain of the ongoing crisis. When he spoke, his voice carried both gratitude and growing concern. "General Webb, we are grateful for your response to our distress call," the Villani leader said. "However, we are confused by your methods. We requested humanitarian aid and refugee transport. Instead, you have brought warships and begun attacking the Krex fleet." Webb considered his response carefully. The Villani had no understanding of military strategy, so explaining human tactical doctrine would be difficult. "High Counselor, we heard your call for help and we're here to provide it. But we're going to solve your problem permanently, not just treat the symptoms." "I don't understand. The Krex have superior numbers and firepower. How can you possibly defeat them with only 3 ships?" "Because, High Counselor, humans approach warfare differently than other species. We don't just fight, we solve problems." The transmission ended, leaving Zefka even more confused about human intentions. On the bridge of the Retribution, General Webb was already implementing the next phase of his battle plan. "Major Brooks, initiate Strategy 7. All units are authorized to engage in multi-phase warfare operations." Strategy 7 was a human military doctrine developed during the war against the hegemony. It involved simultaneous attacks on multiple fronts, designed to overwhelm enemy decision-making capabilities and destroy their command structure. Lieutenant Commander Pete Harris received his orders aboard the stealth vessel UES Shadow. His ship was specially modified for infiltration operations, equipped with advanced cloaking systems and a crew of specialist Marines trained in boarding actions. "Harris to Retribution, beginning stealth approach to Krex command vessels," he reported. Estimated time to target is 30 minutes. While Harris led his infiltration mission, Commander Turner repositioned his fighter squadrons for the main assault. The F-47 Phantoms moved through space in formations that seemed random to Krex observers, but followed precise mathematical patterns designed to maximize their combat effectiveness. Colonel Clark prepared her Marines for what everyone knew would be the most challenging part of the operation. Fighting aboard enemy vessels required different skills than space combat, and the Krex were known to be fierce opponents in close-quarters battle. "Listen up, Marines," she announced over the tactical channel. "We're going to be boarding Krex ships while they're still fighting. Your job is to capture their command centers and eliminate their ability to coordinate their fleet. No prisoners unless they surrender, and don't expect them to surrender." The first phase of Strategy 7 began when Harris's stealth team reached their targets. The UES Shadow approached 3 Krex command vessels undetected, using human sensor technology that was generations ahead of anything the aliens possessed. "Shadow Team Alpha, beginning boarding operation on Target 1, Harris reported as his Marines used cutting tools to breach the Krex hull. The aliens had no idea that enemy forces were already inside their ships. Meanwhile, the main human fleet began its direct assault on the Krex defensive positions. Captain Foster's battlecruisers opened fire with their primary weapons, sending streams of kinetic projectiles and plasma beams toward the alien fleet. But this wasn't the kind of straightforward attack the Krex were expecting. The human ships used advanced targeting systems to identify specific weaknesses in enemy vessels, striking at shield generators, weapon systems, and engine compartments with surgical precision. "Target their command and control systems," Foster ordered his weapons officers. "I want their fleet coordination disrupted before we move to the second phase." The Krex responded with massive volleys of return fire, filling space with deadly energy beams. Their ships were heavily armed and well-armored, designed to win battles through overwhelming firepower. However, the human fleet didn't try to match them shot for shot. Instead, they used their superior mobility to stay ahead of the Krex targeting systems while striking at critical components that would cripple enemy effectiveness. On the Krex flagship, War Marshal Thexus was beginning to understand that he faced an enemy unlike any he had encountered before. The humans fought with a cold efficiency that ignored traditional concepts of honorable combat. "War Marshal, we're receiving confused reports from throughout the fleet," his tactical officer announced. "Several ships are reporting internal explosions and systems failures. It's as if the humans are attacking us from inside our own vessels." Thexus felt a chill of fear. The idea that enemy forces could infiltrate Krex ships without being detected was beyond his understanding of warfare. Increase security patrols on all decks, he ordered, and contact our remaining squadron leaders. I want a coordinated counterattack against the human fleet. But coordinating a counterattack was becoming impossible. Harris's infiltration teams had successfully disabled the communication systems on several command vessels, while the precision strikes from the human fleet were systematically destroying the Krek's ability to function as an organized force. Dr. Moore monitored the battle from her position on the Retribution, analyzing Krek's response patterns and looking for weaknesses in their tactical doctrine. What she saw confirmed everything she had predicted about the alien psychology. General, the Kreks are becoming increasingly desperate, she reported. Their entire military philosophy is based on overwhelming weaker opponents through superior force. They have no doctrine for fighting an enemy that uses more sophisticated tactics. Webb nodded, watching as the human assault continued to tear apart the alien fleet. How much longer before they break? Not long. Their command structure is already fragmenting. When it collapses completely, the individual ship captains will probably try to flee rather than fight to the death. On the surface of Serenity Prime, the Villani watched the orbital battle with a mixture of awe and horror. They had never witnessed warfare conducted on such a scale or with such devastating efficiency. High Counselor Zefka realized that the humans who had responded to their call for help were nothing like the peaceful aid workers the Villani had expected. These were warriors from a species that had clearly evolved to be very, very good at destroying their enemies. War Marshal Thexis faced the collapse of everything he had believed about warfare and conquest. His mighty fleet, which had terrorized peaceful civilizations across the sector for decades, was being systematically destroyed by a force less than 1/10 its size. War Marshal, we've lost contact with over 60 vessels, his communications officer reported, his voice shaking with fear. The humans have somehow disabled our command networks, and our ships are fighting independently. Thexis looked at the tactical display, watching as red icons representing destroyed or disabled Krek's vessels continued to multiply. The human attack wasn't slowing down. If anything, it seemed to be getting more efficient as time passed. Contact all remaining squadron leaders, he ordered desperately. Tell them to begin bombardment of the Villani cities immediately. If we can't defeat these humans in space, we'll force them to surrender by threatening the civilians they came to protect. It was a decision born of desperation and frustration. The last gambit of a commander who had never faced defeat before. Thexis hoped that the humans, like other species he had fought, would value innocent lives more than military victory. He was about to learn how wrong he was. On the bridge of the UES Retribution, General Webb received reports that Krek's vessels were beginning to target population centers on Serenity Prime's surface. His response was immediate and decisive. All units implement Protocol Omega, he announced over the tactical channel. The Kreks have chosen to threaten civilians. Eliminate all enemy forces immediately. Protocol Omega was the human military's response to hostage situations. Instead of negotiating or trying to minimize casualties, it called for the complete and immediate destruction of all enemy forces, regardless of other considerations. Captain Foster's battlecruisers unleashed their full arsenal in coordinated volleys that lit up space like miniature stars. Kinetic projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed punched through Krek's shields and armor, as if they were made of paper. Commander Turner's fighter squadrons abandoned all defensive tactics and threw themselves into attack runs that prioritized speed over survival. The human pilots knew that every second they delayed meant more Villani civilians would die. All squadrons, maximum attack speed, Turner ordered. Target every Krek's vessel that's firing on the surface. No survivors. Lieutenant Gary Stone led his squadron in a desperate charge against a group of Krek's destroyers that were bombarding a Villani city. His F-47 Phantom shook under enemy fire as he closed to point-blank range before releasing his entire payload of kinetic missiles. The Krek's destroyer exploded in a ball of superheated plasma, taking 2 nearby vessels with it. Stone's fighter was damaged by the blast, but he managed to maintain control long enough to see that the bombardment of that city had stopped. Stone to all fighters, the Kreks are breaking formation, he reported. They're trying to escape the system. But escape was impossible. Colonel Clark's Marines had successfully captured the Krex fleet's main communication hub, giving the humans complete tactical awareness of enemy movements. Every Krex ship that tried to flee found human fighters waiting for them. War Marshal Thexus watched his fleet die around him, understanding finally that he had encountered something beyond his comprehension. These humans didn't fight for honor or glory. They didn't seek conquest or domination. They simply identified a problem and eliminated it with ruthless efficiency. War Marshal, our engines are damaged and we cannot escape, his tactical officer reported. The humans are targeting our ship specifically. Thexus looked at the tactical display one last time. Of his original fleet of 237 vessels, fewer than 20 remained functional. The humans had destroyed the Krex Third Conquest fleet in less than 4 hours. Send a message to all remaining ships, he ordered quietly. Surrender to the human forces. Sir, the Krex don't surrender. It's against our military code. The military code doesn't cover situations like this, Thexus replied. These humans aren't just another enemy. They're something else entirely. General Webb received the Krex surrender transmission and considered it for exactly 3 seconds before rejecting it. Message to all Krex vessels, he announced. Surrender is not accepted. You threatened innocent civilians. The consequences are permanent. The last Krex ships died under concentrated human fire, their hulls torn apart by weapons designed to fight opponents far more dangerous than anything the Reptilian Empire had ever faced. When the battle finally ended, space around Serenity Prime was filled with the debris of what had once been a mighty conquest fleet. The silence that followed the last explosion was broken only by Captain Morrison's voice from the UES Challenger. General Webb, this is Captain Morrison. I'm receiving communications from the Volani surface. High Counselor Zefka is requesting immediate contact. Webb nodded to his communications officer. Put him through. High Counselor Zefka appeared on the main view screen, his feathered features showing a mixture of gratitude and deep confusion. Behind him, other Volani officials could be seen celebrating the end of their ordeal. General Webb, we owe you our lives, Zefka said. But I must admit that we don't understand what just happened. We called for humanitarian aid, and you responded, with military force that eliminated our enemies completely. Webb considered his response carefully. The Volani were peaceful beings who had no understanding of military strategy or the realities of warfare against aggressive species. High Counselor, you asked for help, and we provided it. But humans learned long ago that sometimes the only way to protect innocent people is to completely eliminate those who threaten them. But you could have negotiated with the Krex, perhaps found a peaceful solution that didn't require so much destruction. Dr. Moore stepped forward to explain. High Counselor, the Krex Empire only understands superior force. They view negotiation as weakness and would have used any peaceful overtures as opportunities to attack other worlds. The only way to stop them permanently was to destroy their ability to threaten anyone. Zefka was quiet for several moments, trying to process concepts that his peaceful species had never needed to develop. So when you said you would solve our problem, you meant you would eliminate the Krex completely. Yes, Webb confirmed. The Krex Empire's expansion ends here. They will never threaten your people or any other peaceful civilization again. 3 days later, Admiral Sullivan arrived aboard the UES Victory to begin formal diplomatic relations with the Volani Republic. The task force had spent the intervening time clearing debris from orbit and establishing a temporary security presence in the system. High Counselor Zefka met with the Admiral in person, still struggling to understand the nature of the beings who had saved his people. Admiral, we are grateful beyond words for what humanity has done, he said during their first formal meeting. But we are also confused. Your species answered our call for help, but your methods were unlike anything we could have imagined. Sullivan smiled, understanding the Volani confusion. High Counselor, when humans hear someone calling for help, we respond in the only way we know how. We solve the problem, by eliminating it completely. When necessary, yes, your people are safe now, and they will remain safe. The Krex Empire no longer exists as a threat to anyone. That evening, ZFK composed a message to be broadcast to other peaceful civilizations throughout the sector. His warning was complex and nuanced, reflecting the Villani struggle to understand their saviors. To all peaceful species who might hear this message, he began, "If you ever face attack by aggressive conquerors and you call for help, be aware that humanity might answer. But they will not bring the aid supplies and medical teams you expect. They will bring enough firepower to solve your problem permanently." He paused, considering his next words carefully. Humans are not evil or cruel, but they are something that our peaceful minds struggle to comprehend. They are a species that has evolved to be very good at warfare, and when they decide to help you, they will eliminate your enemies completely. The message concluded with a simple statement that would be remembered across the galaxy for generations to come. The Villani Republic called for help, and Deathworlders arrived. We expected humanitarian aid. Instead, we received something far more effective: the complete elimination of those who threatened us. We are safe now, but we will never forget that when humans hear a call for help, they respond not with aid, but with war. In the weeks that followed, word of the human response to the Villani crisis spread throughout the sector. Other aggressive species began to reconsider their expansion plans, while peaceful civilizations started to understand that there was now a military power in the galaxy that would respond to calls for help with overwhelming force. The age of easy conquest was over. Humanity had arrived, and they had made it clear that they would solve problems permanently.